I've done all of Brighton.
Hello there, you loose units. Welcome back to another episode of Spicy Boy Reviews. I'm, of course, your host, Andrew Isles. And hopefully we've been looking after ourselves. Keeping healthy, keeping fit, whatever. Here for another episode. And bugger, let's get straight into today's review, The Little Things. Burnt-out County Deputy Sheriff Joe Deaky Deacon is sent to Los Angeles for what should have been a quick evidence-gathering assignment. Instead, he becomes embroiled in the search for a serial killer who is terrorising the city. He teams up with a hotshot detective named Baxter. Deaky's years and experience for the little things gets them closer to catching a suspect, but his hot-headed ways and tortured past make them toe the line between police procedure and taking the law into their own hands. Will Baxter suffer the same fate as Deacon, or will they both become heroes to the city by taking down a brutal serial killer? And what the fuck is the lead singer of 30 Seconds to Mars up to? It's all about The Little Things. Yes, and that's a synopsis for The Little Things. Apparently this film is streaming at the moment on HBO Max, which I don't think we've got here in Australia, but I went to the cinema and saw it. It's sort of an old-fashioned crime thriller, a bit of a detective story, something that I haven't seen on the big screen in quite a while. It was written and directed by John Lee Hancock, who directed a bunch of different films, including The Rookie, The Alamo, The Blind Side, The Founder, The Highwayman, and now, of course, The Little Things. I'm pretty sure his favourite band could be The, and if he was meant to make a Marvel film, it'd be called The Thor. But apparently he wrote the script 30 years ago and has been sitting on it since, which kind of makes sense, because I don't know if this film would have really been made today with a big release. I know it's at the cinema at the moment and HBO Max, but I feel like because there's slim pickings at the moment, because obviously the world shut down for a little while, so maybe that's what got this film made. I don't really know, I didn't do much research on it, but it does feel like it's an older film. It almost comes across as a bit of a TV crime drama thriller in a way, which is a bit odd. And here we get to Clichéville. Denzel Washington plays an ex-detective who has a shady past, who goes back to his old jurisdiction of Los Angeles. He's met with reluctance from the police because of the shady past, which we'll find out later. But also, apparently he's the best detective that ever detected, because behind his back, everyone sucks his dick. You know, really talks him up that he's this amazing best detective that ever lived, but to his face, they're very reluctant and standoffish. So something's happened, which we find out later. But this is Clichéville to the point where, as I said, he's an ex-detective, gruntled. He's living in a shack, beaten down shack. He's divorced. His wife doesn't really speak to him anymore, and he doesn't speak to his 2 kids. On the antithesis of that, we have Rami Malek, the up-and-coming hotshot young detective. He was the replacement, so to speak, for Denzel Washington's character 5 years ago, and he's there, the young and up-and-coming hotshot detective, and he has everything that Denzel doesn't. So he has a really big house, beautiful wife, still talk to his kids, and his career is on the up and up. And these two have to team up to solve, or to find a serial killer. What a match made in heaven! The film almost came across as like a watered-down version of Seven. Not as much depth or as grittiness, but it was kind of like the TV movie version, I suppose. Anyway, there's some horrific murders in Los Angeles, and good old Denzel sticks around to help mentor and to help solve the case with young Rami Malek, acting as a bit of a mentor, you could say. The main case that they're focusing on, besides these murders, is actually a disappearance of a young girl. They do find bodies and these killings do happen and stuff like that, but it's all Rami Malek's main motivation is to find this young girl, and apparently she went missing wearing a red beret. Is this important? Fuck yes it is. It comes back into play later in a big way, so, you know, put that on the back burner and just keep that in the back of your mind, the red beret. Then, as I said, a couple of other murders happened, and they were very similar to the murders that Denzel Washington failed to solve back in the heyday, like 5 years prior, before he was shunned for whatever reason. So, of course, he's intrigued and he wants to stick around and help young Rami Malek to solve these murders, because it seems to be possibly the same killer. Now, the film is set in 1990. They make a note of that, and I'm not exactly sure why. Nothing really stood out to why this film has to be in 1990, besides the fact that the writer, Hancock, didn't want any pesky cell phones, any smartphones, I suppose. There's no other reason. Like, there's one song that's very 90s at the start, Rome by B-52s, and then that's it. Like, even the fashions, like, everyone's wearing suits, which is sort of timeless in a way. I don't know why it was set in the 90s, and the only thing I can think of is because of the cell phone thing, because everyone uses a landline in every scene, so I guess, but I don't really know why they chose to do that. There are some clever transition scenes, which I did like in this thriller movie. A couple little scenes like headlights would slowly dissolve into a character's eyes as it goes into one scene to another. The cleverest one, which I did like, was when they're on a stakeout, and Denzel Washington is obviously staking out in the car, and then he flips, or he moves the rear vision mirror, and we see in the rear vision mirror a scene from his past, and then all of a sudden, boom, we're into it. I thought that was a clever transition, and there's a couple of those throughout the film, which is, pretty cool. The look of the film, I forget who was the DOP on it. I did look it up, but he'd done everything, this guy. But it had a very Zodiac look, which is obviously the feel they were going for this. Not as gritty as that film, or as good, but it had a very Zodiac feel to it. Now, it's a very haunting movie because Denzel's character is haunted, for lack of a better word, by the dead victims of the cases that he used to work on. So much so, really creepy scene, it happens a couple of times, is these dead women, I guess, the corpses of these dead women, hang out at night at the foot of his bed and watch him sleep when he can't sleep, obviously, because he's haunted by them. Now, it's a pretty creepy scene. I like the fact that they didn't do a fucking jump scare to it, because fuck that cliche off. I did like it. It was creepy and unsettling, and it was just a matter of fact. Like, he's just in his bed, he's going through the case, and then all of a sudden the camera pans around. It's like, oh fuck, there's dead people in the room, and it's not like this is not going down a supernatural path, because then in a similar frame, it's flipped, and then we see that they're gone. So it's obviously in his mind, and he's haunted by these dead women who didn't get closure. Motivation! And we see Mr. Robot, Remy Malek, going down the same path, because this case of this missing girl is really getting to him, because he starts getting distant from his wife, he's not really talking much to his kids, and it's really eating him up inside. And I think Denzel can pick up on that as he's being a bit of a mentor character, and it's almost like a passing of the torch in a bad way. And it's almost like the metaphors are strong with this one. I had a fucking concussion with being beaten over the head with these metaphors as like, it's obviously the young and old, the antithesis. Is Remy Malek going down the same path as Denzel? It was just a metaphor Bukkake party, which is not a bad thing, because this is obviously for a general audience to get around. And for people like moi, and other movie buffs like yourselves, we see these metaphors and they're a bit heavy-handed, because we've seen a fucking shitload of films. But for the general audience, the general public, it's not so bad. And I wouldn't complain about it so much if it stuck with that. But the film doesn't. It starts going into cryptic, ambiguous territory. And it's like, well, the first half of the film was one film, and the second half of the film went down the other. What the fuck are you doing? Pick a lane, movie! Anyway, they're on the case, and they find the perfect suspect. This guy couldn't be any more fucking perfect, and it just so happens to be Jared Leto. Jared Leto. I call him Leto. I don't know what his real name is, but fuck it. For calling Jared Leto for this review. He's creepy, he's unsettling, he's greasy. He's Jared Leto, pretty much. He's playing Jared Leto. And he's very unsettling in this movie. It's actually Jared Leto's being a bit creepy. He's kind of like, kind of like what he did in Blade Runner, I suppose. Like, very creepy and drawn out with his words and stuff. Yeah, it was okay. I mean, he's meant to seem like the obvious choice for the serial killer. I mean, he had the look down pat, long dark hair, beard, white skin. He is the perfect suspect, to the point where the two cops become absolutely fucking obsessed with him. And Jared Leto's character, don't know what he's called, but we'll call him Jared Leto, he plays it up. This guy is unsettled, he's unpleasant, he gets off on crime. He actually says at one point that he's a massive crime buff. So he eases in to that role of being the possible killer. But, he talks the talk, but do we know if he walks the walk? But yeah, the two cops have an absolute boner for Jared Leto's character being the suspect. So much so that There's a scene where a boner becomes probable cause. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, go watch it. Like, as I said, he admits to being a massive crime buff, and he loves the limelight. He's just got a stiffy for it. So much so that, like, apparently 8 or 9 years prior, he admitted to a murder in Los Angeles, where when they did investigation, they found that he was just talking through his ass. It's absolute bullshit. He couldn't possibly have murdered this person because he was seen or done something. He was somewhere else, so they ruled it out. But he so wants to be a serial killer, but we don't know if he actually is the serial killer. A little side note, I also want to say that this movie is dad bod central. Oh yeah, everyone besides Rami Malek has a gut in this movie, and I kind of dug it. Not because I've got a dad bod and saw representation on the big screen for myself, but no, it just comes across as real life and realistic, especially for a cop thriller, because I'm so sick of like cop thrillers where the cops are played by a ripped, buff, washboard ab dudes who spend all the time in the gym, when on screen we don't see that at all. Usually we see them drinking in bars, playing pool, running the case with their partner while drinking a lot of beer. They're on stakeouts, eating donuts, junk food and energy drinks, and other times they're behind their desk making phone calls all day. They're always sitting down or talking to people. They haven't got time for the fucking gym, and if you do, you're not going to look like fucking The Rock, for instance. I hate that. But this film, they didn't do that. The guts were out on display. The boys are out, which I kind of like, because it was just a little attention to detail. It was like, yeah, that's more believable and realistic. So yeah, thumbs up for that. Now, this film is going to divide audiences, and it already has from what I've seen online. I did a quick little search to see what's being said about this film, because apparently it's been out for a while, but I've only just recently saw it, because the only thing just recently come out here in Australia. And a lot of it is these ending explained, because the ending is very ambiguous and cryptic, okay? And I watched a couple of these ending explained videos, and they didn't explain fucking shit. It was just clickbait. Oh, I'm going to explain the ending for you, but then they just told you the movie beat for beat, and then go, what did you think happened at the end? People who do that, fuck you, you pieces of shit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain what I think the ending is. So we're going to get into spoiler territory here, okay? If you don't want the film spoiled for you, fast forward to the end or turn off now, go watch it and come back, because I'm absolutely going to spoil the shit out of this, and I'm going to give you my thoughts of what I think the ending is after marinating on it for a little while. So here we go. Now, Jared Leto takes Rami Malek to the middle of bumfuck nowhere, because he says, this is where the missing girl with the red beret is buried, and I'll take you to her as my confession. And of course, he bites. Rami Malek wants to solve this case. It's consuming him. So they drive out to the middle of bumfuck nowhere, and Jared Leto gives Rami Malek a shovel and goes, start digging. I buried her here. Oh no, wait a minute. I buried her over here. Oh no, wait a minute. I buried her over here. Getting him to dig all these random deep holes and just fucking with him and getting into his head psychologically. To the point where then Rami Malek loses it and kills Jared Leto in a fit of rage. Hits him with a shovel. Jared Leto's dead. All of a sudden, Denzel Washington rocks up, and then boom, without even in a heartbeat, goes straight into cover-up mode. That's right, he says, bury the body, I'll get rid of the car, I'll clean out his apartment and look like he fled town, because that's what he's done before, apparently. We've heard that earlier. And he's gone straight into cover-up mode, so we're all like, fuck, Denzel's a shady character all of a sudden. And then we have a flashback, and we find out that he's kind of done this before, Denzel Washington, I mean. We find out his shady past of what happened is with his other murders, they discovered these bodies, and what had happened is one of the girls got away and hid in the bushes, but when the cops rocked up, Denzel and his partner, she jumped out to say thank you, and he accidentally shot her, and she's dead. And so the small group of cops that were involved in this case, they covered it up for him, but he had to leave town and he was shunned, so it was like a cop cover-up. So he's gone straight into cover-up mode again. So what happens is Rami Malek buries Jared Leto's body, like Denzel said he was going to do. He got rid of the car, he went back to his apartment, and then started sifting through everything and trying to find some evidence that this was actually the killer. Now, there's a few people online who are saying that Denzel Washington's possibly the killer. Bullshit. I'm telling you, for my feedback, he's not. There's so much evidence to point that he's not. He's a shady character. He's no fucking angel, and that will come back later. He's not perfect, but he's not the killer, for God's sake. But is Jared Leto? We still don't know. So he's cleaning out the apartment, and he gets all the stuff. He bags it up in the car, and he's looking for this red beret. And if the red beret was around, then Jared Leto's the killer, obviously, because he took it off the victim. Only the cops knew about that. Anyway, Rami Malek takes some time off, long service leave. Denzel Washington burns all the evidence, all the stuff that was in Jared Leto's house, and then they get the FBI in the case. They're taking over, so the case is still technically open. They're looking for Jared Leto, who's fled town when really he's dead, buried in a hole in the desert somewhere. Yes, so the ending explained, because what happens is Rami Malek gets a package at the end of the film by Denzel Washington, and he opens it up, and inside is a red beret, what looks like the same one that the missing girl had on. And then we go, oh, well, there you go. Jared Leto must have been the killer, and he found it in the apartment. But not so the case, because then we click back to Denzel Washington burning all the evidence, all of Jared Leto's belongings, and we see him throw into the fire a packet of barrettes, and the red one's missing. So what he's done to alleviate Rami Malek's character of guilt so he doesn't make the same mistakes as Denzel Washington does and go down the same path of losing his family, losing his career, losing his house, losing everything, he's tried to alleviate his guilt by letting him think that he's killed the killer, that he's found the guy, that Jared Leto was the guy, which is not the case. I feel like Jared Leto was just a mentally deranged, unwell guy who loved attention and the spotlight, hence why he slid right into that serial killer category and really played it up because he loved the attention and loved fucking with people, especially Rami Malek's character. So Denzel has faked it. He's given just a random red beret to Rami Malek to alleviate him of his guilt so he can go on and not have ghosts at the end of his bed and be torn apart, because for Denzel, it's too far gone for him. He's made his mistakes and he's got to live with them. He thinks that Rami Malek doesn't have to. But the ending explained who is the killer? Well, that's the fucking thing that divides audiences, I think. He's still out there. They didn't catch the killer. It's open-ended, which I can see why it would piss off a general audience, because we all like closure in our films. We all like things wrapped up in a nice little bow, and I understand that. I do too, to an extent. But this is either one or two things. This is either genius or fucking laziness. Okay, so either the director goes, okay, well, real life isn't wrapped up in a nice little bow. There is thousands and thousands of unsolved murders, unfortunately, out there in the world. He goes, and this is just one of them. This is like what the characters are feeling, that obsession of trying to fix it, trying to wrap everything up, trying to save the day, and being a hero. But they don't, because that's kind of real life, which is fucking depressing. Now, that's not so bad if the whole film was like that. But like I said, the first half of the film was like this beating you over the head metaphor bukkake party, going, oh, it's really set up for a twist, or it's set up for, they're definitely going to find the killer. But then halfway through, it goes into cryptic ambiguity land and doesn't solve anything. So it's either real life, it's a smart ending to go, well, this is how real life is. I'm sorry, it's bleak and it's fucked up, but that's how it is. Or they were just so fucking lazy and didn't know how to end it and couldn't think up of a cool twist that they just didn't. So I can see why it can anger people for both arguments, either being lazy or being too fucking clever. I understand that. Also, I was saying before the no angels thing, which is brought up a few times throughout the film, especially by Denzel Washington, that we're not angels. There are no angels, don't be an angel, or a superhero, whatever you will. Because, and I think the metaphor for that, or trying to dismantle that, is because no one's an angel, especially these guys, cops. Because you see people, the cops in society and stuff, and they're wearing a badge, they're meant to be all that's good and great and protect us. But at the end of the day, they're still fucking human, okay? They have nightmares, they have bad days, they get angry, they get hungry, they have fights with their spouses at home, and at the end of the day, it's still just a job. Even though they're law enforcement, it's still just a job, and they make mistakes, which these two cops have made severe mistakes, like by accidentally murdering people. One sort of got away with it, and one has to live with it, and the ghosts of that for the rest of his life. Anyway, I thought that was a cool little thing. So, that's my ending explained at the end of that. Unfortunately, I don't think anyone was the killer. The killer was still out there. And for those arguments that people go, oh, but maybe here's 5 reasons why Denzel was the killer. Fuck off. Like, if they were going to go down that road, I don't think the film is that clever. They would have made that a fucking massive twist with a shitload of flashbacks. I mean, we've had flashbacks throughout the whole bloody movie. I reckon they would have really leaned into that and made it a massive Sixth Sense type of reveal or something. But they didn't do that because I don't think they were clever enough. But yeah, I think it was, I'm going to say, for the benefit of the doubt, it was purposely ambiguous and the killer is still out there. There is no closure because sometimes there is no closure in real life. Anyway, that was my Ending Explained little tangent, but the movie, was it good? Yes, to a point. I was on board for the first half. As I said, the Metaphor Bukkake Party was strong, but I didn't mind it because I know it's for a general audience, or at least I thought it was, and then it went off in a weird little territory. And I was thinking to myself, fuck, you better wrap this up, pretty fucking good movie. Even anticlimactic, do something with it. But it didn't, and it lost me towards the end. I walked out of there bereft, if that's the word I think that I'm looking for, but I was just like, was that it? Was that it? Or this lead up to nothing? And as I said, I don't know if they were trying to be clever to go, well, life is ambiguous, and so is this film, or they were just lazy. Either, was it a good film? Sort of. I probably wouldn't go to the cinema to see it. Well, not many people have. Apparently it's HBO Max stream, so wait for it to go on a streaming service that we can get here in Australia. But again, it feels like a bit of a TV movie. It's not great. I think the only good thing about it is the caliber of actors in it. And even they're so-so. Like Rami Malek felt like he was pushing every single line, like it was a struggle to talk. I don't know if that's how he talks. I've only ever seen him do Freddie Mercury, and then he was in The Pacific that I got right into, which is a pseudo sequel to Band of Brothers. But yeah, and then Jared Leto's been creepy Jared Leto. You know, go figure. But yeah, it was okay. It was alright. I'd give it maybe 2.5 stars. Run of the mill. Wasn't great, but it was okay. Anyway, guys, that's enough of this fucking heady business and going on a tangent of rubbish. Yeah, see it if you want to. Don't see it. I don't give a shit. Thank you for supporting this channel. Please like and subscribe as always. And, as always, stay spooky, kids.